going to hand over to Matthias in just a second, but before I do that, let me just give you a bit of a picture, a little bit of an intro for this guy that's very kindly come along to talk to us today about blended learning and the connection of blended learning to mindfulness-based approaches. So Matthias is the co-founder and managing director of a company called Kudima GmbH, which I'm sure you'll talk a little bit more about for us in a moment. 10 years of experience Matthias has in developing and delivering mindfulness programs, and that cuts across various different audiences and contexts and landscapes. And Matthias and I have met before. We've had a couple of great conversations around mindfulness and also mindfulness in this modern world, this modern society that we live in. And I know that, Matthias, you're so passionate, aren't you, about creating some digital solutions, but also digital solutions that really help to enable that sense of human connection to well-being and transformation. Very entrepreneurial, Matthias, you're a very entrepreneurial guy. And particularly working in those corporate sectors, you get a fair amount of joy from that. And I know that you've got this vision, haven't you, about making mindfulness accessible, as I just said, but really impactful for people. And I think you and I have got something in common there. But making it really impactful for people, impactful for everybody, but supporting that continuous growth and sustainability of a mindfulness community. And it goes without saying that Matthias's experience, but also I think credit around his own development at CPD is pretty vast in terms of coaching, training, and as I said, training and coaching across various different landscapes and organisations. He's an insights master coach, systemic coaching, life coaching, also a yoga teacher. It's lovely to hear. And a master in adult education. So really broad sense of background, experience and capability. And I think that just, for me, brings such a smile to my face that you've given us your time today, and we really appreciate you being here. So there might be a few more bing bongs in the background, Matthias, but I'll let you work with that as people maybe continue to enter the room. But I'm going to hand over to you and as you go with the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Yeah, a warm welcome to everybody joining this session. I've been introduced, so there's nothing to add from my point. Just I want to end the poll now, so it's not blocking anybody's screen, and show you the results as well. So you know what kind of experience we have in that room. I, from my background, have a lot of experience. That's why I was invited as a speaker for today's session. I'm happy to have here two people already that say it's part of my portfolio, and but everybody is welcome. It's not a master class, it's a session to actually get an idea what is blended learning, and I would love to encourage you to embrace that approach. Talking before the session with Teresa, we talked about, let's say, a declining market or declining numbers in signups for mindfulness courses. And that's interesting because people don't suffer less. That's what I at least see when I look into societies and into the crisis mankind is facing. So there's a lot of suffering. At the same time, talking to teachers, I get a lot of feedback. Oh, you know, courses are not getting filled with people anymore. So maybe blended learning could be one approach or one help at least to tackle that in a creative way. And that's might be my basic message. Be creative, be bold, and try things out. Because things of the past worked in the past, they might not work today anymore as good as they did. And you might like some parts, embrace it, some parts can be dropped, but also find out where do you leave the comfort zone for the good. So let me just go ahead and share my screen. And please, if you have questions in the meantime, post them in the chat. And I would like to ask Steph and Teresa and Sally, because I'm so bad in reading the chat while I present, unmute, interrupt me, and just bring in the question. I'm happy to answer. We have left 45 minutes, so I will speed up a little bit. I will want to have some time for discussion as well. And now let me share my screen and get started. Okay, I guess you all see my presentation. Yes, good. So what's the menu? We don't have lunch yet, but still, so briefly today's landscape, then we talk why blended learning could be an important approach, and then we talk about program design. I assume, I didn't ask this question, that most of you work as mindfulness teachers, but probably all do. And since it's the workplace community, you probably have programs that are designed for corporate contexts. And then if we find time, I'll do a quick demonstration of Mindseed. That's a software Kudima developed, which is actually a platform to create blended learning mindfulness programs. So what's the landscape? If you have a quick look, you all know mindfulness apps, Headspace, Calm, and so on. So there is the only appearance of a teacher on the app might be the voice that actually was used to record a guided practice. We have live online courses. There might be some of us also teaching for eMindful. So, and you might have yourself live online courses offering webinars. Then we have marketplace apps. The most common, probably Insight Timer, meaning you can sign up as a teacher and actually offer your courses on Insight Timer. And the marketplace app always lists all possible options next to each other. It's like Amazon. It's just a marketplace for mindfulness courses and meditations. And when we thought about, I had this urge of building something to help also the community of teachers. I looked into marketplace apps. I looked into e-learning, Vastly, Coursera, Udemy. And what I found out is that mostly it's a few people that get a lot of traffic, selling a lot of courses because they are listed on top. And once you have 1,000 people that booked your course and rated you 4.5 stars, you will stay there probably. And it's because, that's trust. People trust ratings basically. And probably you have a great offer, but it's very difficult for the majority of teachers to actually create income with their courses on those platforms because it's just a few earning usually a lot. Then if you go on YouTube, you type meditation course, you find mindfulness classes, you find live streams of teachers, of yoga teachers, you find everything on YouTube you can educate yourself with, and it's basically for free. And of course, where we probably all come from, on-site courses, teaching in a meditation hall or in a workshop room within a corporation. And then what came up latest, but it's not so late, it's a few years around, is the topic of blended learning. And I came across blended learning in my previous role. I was working at Avaris and I had been head of digital at the end and also program design. And we delivered to vast audiences, also international companies. And it was not just possible to serve a workshop to 2,000 people. You don't have a budget to serve to 2,000 people. So we needed to start somehow to get creative, actually. How can we reach a vast amount of people? And that's where I got in touch with blended learning. But what is blended learning? In the beginning, I asked the question, and I'm quite curious if you would still say, yes, that's what I do in my programs. So what's the definition? First of all, it's traditional in-person classes. And nowadays, you could also say, live or synchronous online sessions like we have here now. We all met under one URL at the same time and can have a live discussion, are supplemented or supported. It's not about replacing. So as a learner, you can take advantage of both online and offline resources. So it's two things. One is happening, it could be also all online. It could happen it happens at the same time. You need to show up. If you want to ask me a question, show up to my session. If you want to read a PDF, you can do it at home. So I can have both things available. And as a teacher, that's sometimes forgotten. And that's for me the most beautiful part, actually, of blended learning. You take advantage of technologies to support your sessions so it frees up space. Just imagine that everything where you're actually not needed is gone out of a live workshop, and people can do it online themselves. And you have time for teaching, for practice, for exploration. Because I'm a passionate coach, and I was always a bit frustrated or bored when I had to do a workshop 20 times and explain the same stuff 20 times. There are things we need to explain, yes, but there are theories whatsoever people can easily take up themselves before the session. So one of my core beliefs is that a teacher can not be replaced entirely, but he can be replaced in some parts where we don't need that human quality of exploration, where we don't need that experience we have as mindfulness teachers in going that path of mindfulness practice for some years now and introducing people and helping people. So it aims to strengthen the teacher, not replace the teacher. An app is there to replace a teacher. Recorded sessions stored somewhere are replacing teachers. You don't need that many teachers. But blended learning needs you, and I believe that that also you need, in nowadays at least, some part of blended learning approach to be sustainable on the market that has changed. So why? There is, I already gave some messages out there. So for me, and that's the vision of I founded Kudima, it's all about impact. You could be interested in selling a lot of stuff. I'm not interested in selling a lot of stuff. I'm interested in, also selling, but it should create impact because that's what the world needs. It's just a mess out there, what's happening in many places. And more mindfulness, that's my personal belief, can only do good. So, and how can we actually improve the quality of mindfulness courses? And what we can see is instructor-led classes lead to more practice frequency compared to digital only. That's a good news. If you go somewhere and you have to pitch and they say, maybe we buy 1,000 Headspace licenses. Yes, you can do so, but it's somehow limited. When you talk about impact, people will practice more and practice will change people's life. And then if you compare in total, you see there are links down there. I don't go too much into details. You get better outcomes as digital-only classes when it comes to stress, resilience, and so on and so forth. And then what we also found out is that the impact is strongly affected on the quality of the relationship and the quality of the relationship among participants. I think for me, if you think about where mindfulness comes from, and there is Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha, and the Sangha means community, right? So people feeling actually connected, and this helps them to stay on that track and learning and practice and being engaged. And in the morning, I said, what does ChatGPT say? Sometimes I just go there and ask a question and see, does it match with my thinking and learning? Does it contradict? And why? And then start questioning and challenging myself. And that's the exact question I put in. How would you design a blended learning program? There had been 12 bullet points in between, so it's just worth putting that question and you get a lot of information. But it just says, okay, it involves combining in-person and online learning components to create a comprehensive and effective learning experience. And that's it. That does not mean it has to be 16 or 20 weeks long, 20 different modules. We could have made out of this session, which is now just a 1-hour webinar, a blended learning event. There could have been a poll being sent up front. There could have been some video from me, 10 minutes, talking about blended learning, like what I did now, explaining about what is blended learning. You could have watched it before, or I could just send you a YouTube link of somebody explaining it even better than I do. And then we meet here, and I give you before a question to reflect on and say, please bring your questions here. So we have more time for actually exchanging questions and experiences. And then after the session, there would be some more materials on blended learning for those that feel inspired to go deeper. And there could be a quiz or a survey at the end to see where you take it to. That would be a blended learning approach, having a webinar in here and some before and some after. So we combine stuff and we address different learning styles. Some people need to read to actually digest and to take it in. For some people, it's better to watch, to listen. It's so different. So in using technology where we can store different modalities to address different learning styles, it's easy. And people can choose what suits them and suits their learning styles. So some obstacles, as you might know, regular attendance, showing up. If it's only on-site, you might have to commute. Sometimes the times just don't fit your agenda. That's why people ask for recordings. Motivation issues might be high in the beginning, then it becomes challenging, it drops. Or, what happens after the course has ended. People tend to forget the practice. Maybe not just forgetting, but it's so difficult to change that habit and to bring a new habit into life and include mindfulness practice in our daily routines. So people tend to forget the practice, losing the motivation at the end of the course has ended. Everybody's excited. Wow, and they are left in the company, go back to their routines. And after a few weeks, you go back and ask, how's it going? You might have 1 or 2 people out of 20 still sticking to the practice and what they actually set as personal learning goals. So how can blended learning improve? And that's going towards creating impact. You can provide access to resources. How often are you asked as a teacher, oh, that's so great, do you have a book recommendation? Do you know an interview with that person you just talked about I could look at on YouTube? Or what about the guided practice? Can I have access? And you might send a Dropbox link, you might create a list on SoundCloud, you might upload it on Insight Timer, have a playlist there. So there might be many ways, or you just send an MP3 as an attachment, to support people actually in their programs. And then flexibility and convenience, it's getting more, to some extent. I don't like it personally, how flexible and convenient sometimes people think about, when it comes to taking up a course. But still, people are changing. And what I hear from, at least from MBSR teachers in Germany, that people, the threshold of signing up to an 8-week MBSR course is somehow getting higher. People don't easily commit to such a program. It's kind of a hurdle. And I tell them, why not having a 1-hour online session, which is just on the topic of mindfulness, and then have a 4-hour workshop people can sign up to later. And once they did the workshop and like you and feel confident, they will easily sign up to an 8-week course. And this does not mean both sessions before are for free. It's just a different offer. Community and support. How many groups have you ended and people created a WhatsApp group, to stay in touch, or Telegram or Signal whatsoever. The topic of continuous learning. So how much can you actually provide to people also beyond the actual course program end date? People can have access to and come back or send a reminder. And how much feedback and monitoring is happening. So when you work with an online platform where people are registered and read materials, you actually see what's happening in the course. Where do people drop off? If you have assignments between sessions, nothing is happening. The next session should start with what was happening in the meantime. What is so challenging in your everyday life that it's not happening? Because just continuing, yes, at the end you deliver 8 workshops, but did you really create impact? That's a different question. Okay, let's come to program design. And other questions in the meantime, maybe I just pause here because I'm talking a lot. Maybe other questions I just stop sharing before I come to the program design part. You will get a copy of the slides, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so just raise both hands, please, in the camera. Okay, and then try to clap with your neighbor. Okay, everybody awake. That's good. Now bring both hands back. If I'm on the right track, lower both hands. If I'm on the wrong track, keep one hand up or two. Okay, thank you. So I just couldn't, that's my way of asking, you know, if there's silence, I don't know what's happening. I cannot read your minds. So I just know I will continue now. Okay, share my screen again. Program design. First of all, let's just take it very simple. What are learning modalities? And you know them all already. I promise you, there's nothing in you don't know. Live teaching. It can also be, you always see a little picture in the picture, online. It could be a workshop. It could be online in a webinar. Group learning. I could ask now a question and we could have a discussion with the whole group. Or you could use a Miro board. Or you sit in a workshop room and ask a question and people discuss, exchange our wisdom, exchange our questions, our experiences. Small groups. If I would now create breakout sessions, please discuss, reflect on the following. And you will probably do the same, talk to one person about that question. Small group work. Solo reflection. Usually not happening that often in a 1-hour webinar, but take some time and digest and reflect. What are your takeaways? What are your goals? Examples for solo reflections. And this can happen in a workshop. It can happen outside of a workshop. It can happen at home. Self-study. All of you, I assume, are certified mindfulness teachers. So you all went through a professional training certification program. And probably there was a lot of self-study involved. Practice and live teaching and supervision, but also reading books. That's self-study. And that can happen in between sessions. It can happen with a real book. It can happen with a PDF. It could also be a YouTube video you educate yourself with. And when it comes to mindfulness practice, that's a very important part, at least my point of view, in mindfulness trainings. And again, this could happen with a recording, listening to you, sitting somewhere, watching, or like Stephanie, thank you for your practice in the beginning. We practiced together in that session. Everybody joined the practice, listening to Steph's guidance or in a context. So those are, let's say, learning modalities. And I have a son, he's aged 9, he's crazy about Lego. And so that picture came to me. It's like Lego. If you take those modalities, right? Think of it as building blocks. Don't think they have to be all in one training, then it's a great training. Don't think you have to tick all the boxes in various situations, then it's a great training. No, those are modalities you can play with, like Lego blocks. I sometimes went to our clients with a bag of Lego pieces when I talk to L&D people and HR to design a training. Okay, so we talked about the objectives, we did the assessment, where are people, how many people want you to reach, and what's the context in the organization. And then I told them, okay, this Lego block stands for a webinar. That's for a workshop. That's a half-day workshop, that's a full-day workshop. That's a coaching session. And then we started to actually use the Lego blocks. It was very fun to build up that training. Because, that's also interesting about blended learning. You can easier meet the budget of the client. Because if it's only about selling you in live workshops, you soon reach the ceiling. It would be great to have 20 one-day workshops. You know, they won't make it available for the people because it's just too expensive, or your price is not realistic. You know, but if you ask for a realistic price, if you want to make a living with a mindfulness training as a trainer, and you are professional, but if you have something recorded, which you can use for all your trainings, it was just a one-time effort. And then there's a webinar, which is just 1 hour. So you can start building those blocks, and some are cost extensive, some are not. Some you have to use, you know, if you create professional content, you have to use several times for it to pay back, but it will. You know, so I want to encourage you to that part of creativity. And let's, as you see down there, it says synchronous and asynchronous. So asynchronous is everything happening outside of a live session, and it's only one person doing it. Because if you ask a peer group to meet between sessions and they have to meet as persons, it's becoming synchronous. Because two people have to go what? To one place, online or on-site, in one time. Asynchronous is everything which is about self-study, filling out an assessment, the questionnaire. So for me, there's always the question, what's the before, the while, and the after? So before a session, there is a preparation phase. And as I said before, we could take that blended learning program today and transfer it to a real blended learning program. Preparation phase, and then it's okay, then we meet. It could be online, it could be in a workshop room. And one advice from my experience, if somehow possible, try to get the people in the beginning in one live workshop on site for building trust and community. If that's possible with, you know, the objective of the training and the clients, or, you know, if people are in various places, it has to be online. But I was always fighting to get people in the beginning for a day or at least half a day into one room with me to build trust and relationship. And then in that same week we have left, it could be, you know, there's a question, there's an email or on the platform with a reflection question saying, okay, you know, I know, you know, you had a commitment going out of the workshop. How does it feel today? You know, did you already ask somebody for feedback on that? What could be anything. Some learning materials, they shall meet as a peer group. And that's also something, if somehow possible, I always set up, I call them focus groups in the first session. A focus group is there to support each other. Peer group, at least in Germany, it's a bit difficult because people say, oh, another peer group. But a focus group shall help you to keep the focus on your learning journey while you are on the learning journey, very explicit. And I provided them with scripts for the meeting. I didn't just say meet, you know, you should meet once a week for an hour. There was an agenda. First, 10 minutes practice, then this question, then before you watch the video, then you will discuss your insights on that video. So, and if you have more energy for something different, which is topic related, drop the agenda, right? But if you don't know exactly what to do, you can follow it. And of course, the practice, and I always try to get somehow a mindfulness app people could use on their phones to practice, because that's a big obstacle if you need guided practices for your trainings and people cannot easily listen to it and access it. Oh, that went somewhat far. Oh, my keyboard is going crazy. Wait a second. My keyboard is gone. Yeah, you could use second week. It could be somehow different. It could be a video, a question. There could be an online chat. right? That could be next to a video or an audio or whatsoever, could be a question. And people know it's expected that before I come to the next session, to go there, engage with the material and discuss that question. Then it could be an online session and so on and so forth. So don't think that this is the masterpiece for blended learning. It's just making up an example and trying to encourage you to actually start to play with the learning modalities and think what to put where. Due to time, I will drop that. You will get the slides that can help you to somehow think more about where to go digital and where facilitated. Because you have to look at the learners. So what's the audience? The learning is like, if you work with shop floor people and they don't have access at work to a digital device, only in the break time, it's not a suitable approach. If you work with knowledge workers, with management team, they have that access and they have the capacity and the knowledge usually. So you can go through, and of course, when we talk about mindfulness training, I think that's important. When you talk about the second one, learning, the first point on the left side, shared norms and soft skills. That's why I truly believe mindfulness needs a certain amount of facilitation. You know, Headspace and Calm, great apps, but it's somehow limited. It can get you started, but not too deep into the practice. And logistics. So if you, I don't know, your context. Usually blended learning is ideal for large scale populations. As I told you before, if you have 2,000 people, 1,000, 10,000 people working in many different places, it's a great approach. But what about small scale populations? Then it comes to some, let's say, standardization. If you have a program well designed, because there's this effort in the beginning. You need the learning curve, you need to engage with the software, you need to build it up. And if you do just one training a year, that's probably not a good ratio in effort and outcome. But if you design training, or let's say, what I always recommend is, because if you talk about mindfulness, it will be somehow about resilience, stress, focus, empathy, communication, emotions, compassion, name them. There are a few core topics, and you could create modules and then start, when you design a training for a customer, to recycle in a good way those modules. So the ramp up time for setting up training is getting low. And of course, if you offer blended learning to a company, they also know what effort is in the training. So this can be also in your negotiations. It's not just, it's only 1.5 days workshop. No, it's 1.5 days of facilitation. It's a 6 weeks course stretched, having a lot of online resources being well composed. So there is, don't be too shy to ask to get it honored that there's a value in, and that the value is actually reflected in your payment as well. And questions to ask yourself in preparation, because trainer personalities are different. Some don't feel too comfortable in, let's say, in a coaching role, in free exploration. They love to teach, to guide the practices, but maybe not too much space. So ask yourself, how do I make best use of online and on-site sessions as a participant and as a teacher, with your teacher personality and your learner's personality? Always try to think from both ends to find your sweet spot. And then thinking of your students, of your participants. You had so many in the past, and there's so much experience you have, and you know their questions, you know their needs. Write it down. What would they need before, between, and after live sessions to stay on their learning path? How could you really help them? And it's not yet saying that you have to do it, but just gather your insights about that. And then, which support do you want to offer? You know, I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Instagram because I just don't want to spend so much time on those kind of tools engaging in communication. Some people love it. It's great. So who are you? If you have an online tool and enable a chat room whatsoever and put questions there, people will expect you probably also to comment. People will post a question. You know, are you ready then to step in and answer that question in that online tool? So ask yourself, so synchronous and asynchronous in both worlds, you know, what support do you want to offer? And what role does community play in your concept? Because community somehow needs to be initiated. It needs some attention, at least in the beginning, until it starts rolling itself. And then how do I balance the best possible learning experience with the extra efforts that come along? And is it, you know, what value do you actually create? And can you actually sell it to your customers? That's also part of it. And we could go on. But what I want to encourage you is to not think, oh, now I've learned about blended learning and I have to do it. You know, make it yours. Adapt it to your needs, to your audiences, and to your personality. You know, it should assist you. It should help you, not stress you out. You know, but there are so many advantages you can take of technology. And we just have 1 hour, you know, but just automating emails being sent, using templates, having all your materials in one place online, and you can easily set up an online library for your people, equipping them easily with an app, you know, those are things that help you. You provide extra value, you might stick out from the competition, and the most important thing, the probability of you creating more impact is getting higher. And that's, you know, that's my purpose and my drive. So it comes to the question, what software solutions do you use doing that? And I assume you already use some stuff. Maybe the two that answered, you know, we already use it, use an e-learning tool like, I don't know, Kajabi or Teachable or Podia or EloPage. There are many out there. You know, platforms to organize online learning. Or you use Zapier, combine things. Or you just use different services. You know, you send emails with my personal email address. You have maybe a cloud folder, and then you have an Excel spreadsheet. And if people want to sign up to your session, they write you an email. I don't know, you know. So that's a question you need to assess. And that's where I was struggling in my previous role, and that's where the idea of Mindset was born. Because when we started to get more, let's say, complex program design, because having an online library, having an app, having on-site sessions and online sessions, having it all, and then maybe also community software, or using a tool from the company itself, it became somehow stressful for the trainer, but also for our project management team to get all those ends somehow connected. And for the learner not to get lost. This information I get via email. There is a link. It sends me to a Dropbox folder, which I might only use with my private email because the company doesn't allow. And then I can download the SoundCloud app because there's a playlist with the guided practices. So from both perspectives, it was challenging. And that's what Mindseed, our software, is doing. Trying to, of course, you still need PowerPoint to create a presentation, and you need a Zoom account to have a webinar, but to bring it together all in one place and create a learning experience. So what you will get an app. So we are not a Mindseed is not a marketplace app. That means there's only your content. But if you create an account, you will always have a Mindfulness app for your people, having your guided practices if you upload them. You can have e-commerce functionality. So people are nowadays used to, buy online. It's less for, of course, the corporate sector because it's negotiations happening. But if you do B2C trainings as well, so straight to the end customer, they might look for e-commerce to buy and register online. And then, once you've set up a course, it's so easy to just recycle it or clone it, copy it for the next run. And of course, you embrace digital learning opportunities. And we provide you with almost all features, I would say, needed to create a blended learning offer. That's Mindseed. And I don't go now on a demonstration of Mindseed. I would stop first now and answer your questions. And if time is left, I show you the software, but I want to keep that space actually now for your questions. I will send the presentation. There's also a link. You can sign up for a 30-day free trial and explore it yourself. I think there's no much added value now in clicking you through everything.
Great. Thank you so much, Matthias. That was really informative. There's so much content and material to get your head around there as well. So yeah, let's just see what's on people's minds. You can pop your question in the chat if you want to, or you can just pop your hand up. But there is a question from Nicole. We want to take a look at that.
So that's a good question. Thank you for that one. If you want people to do something outside of a session, it has to be linked somehow to the next session or the next synchronous activity. If you have a focus group happening in between and they see the agenda of the focus group and it's about actually discussing something they had to learn before, there is, let's say, social pressure, positive social pressure, because people don't want to show up completely unprepared. And if the next session is a live session with me, I will be very waiting in the beginning and say, okay, and if nobody has engaged with the materials, that will be the topic to start the session with. Was it boring? Was it not helpful? What are the reasons for? Because then it might be that they completely refuse and then we can negotiate and change things. But basically what my experience is, if you keep it short and it's helpful and it's somehow actually really embedded, it's not something supplementary. I think that's the important thing. If they feel it's not really essential, and that's what if I really do blended learning design, in the first session, I make sure I tell people how the whole logic works. And that if they want to really, really benefit from the training, everything is needed. And I always have that line of essential, I call it essentials. And I tell them, make sure I keep those essentials, I keep them crisp and short, engage with. And I have a side branch called deepening. If you find, that's the topic that really strikes you, where you are struggling with, or you think you will benefit most, you can go deeper, and go deeper. But so don't create a program and people open it and they see in a chapter 15 tasks. They will just close it, because it's oof. But if people know, it's, and that's to balance it, right? And not trying to push everything out of a session, but people understand what value you bring to a session as a teacher depends that they bring questions, frustration, experience they had in the meantime, because that is how we get things to life. If you just read, it's like reading a book about cardio or jogging, running, won't make you a runner. Then you start running and okay, getting the routine. You're struggling, and then you talk to somebody who's a runner's teacher. He will help you based on your real life experience. And that's what I tell people. And you might lose 2 or 3 that don't engage, but you have a lot that engage and will come to the sessions having real questions. That's what I'm always looking for, real experience and questions based on interaction with content and practices in real life. And it comes to workplace, in workplace scenarios. Haha, Matthias, so fun. How should I practice at a workplace? People would laugh at me. Yes, important question, right? So that's maybe based, to that question. Make them feel it's important, and of course it should be important and supportive.
Thanks, Nicole.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
Yes,
we'll take that. Let's take Chris's, and then there's another one that's coming to the inbox. Thanks, Chris.
Just breakout groups, Matthias, it's we find them really quite difficult to get an awful lot of value out of them, in the sense that you have, I don't know, you probably have either too few in the group or they have too many in the group. And one person is monopolizing the conversation, or we try and do too much in a breakout group or what you call a workshop. I wonder if you have any sort of thoughts on how to make you're seeking to get interactivity into the process and not just talking heads where you're just talking at people. Do you have thoughts about how to make those breakout groups more effective, or do things in a way that gives more value to people?
Transparency. If I would send you to breakout sessions, I would have started the same like you did. There is a tendency of people, taking over a breakout session and use it as a stage. It's not. And it's so beautiful. We are in a mindfulness workshop, if it would be a mindfulness workshop, and we can actually practice mindful listening and speaking in a breakout session. So, make things that usually happen in breakout sessions out of your experience, make it transparent. It's not blaming anybody. It's just reminding ourselves, if we have the tendency to take over, or if we have the tendency to give the space, to say, take it as a challenge. If you're a person that usually talks a lot, maybe to listen more. And if you observe, awareness, there is some people being silent, completely observing, which is beautiful in the breakout session. Invite them to contribute their wisdom. So that's what I usually do, right? And you can steer the size of the breakout room technically in Zoom. You can set, the thresholds, that works. And the question to be discussed needs to be very precise, and should be just one question if possible.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And Chris, I don't know if you're aware, Chris, but when you use Zoom and you create breakout rooms, do you know that you can give breakout rooms headings? You can give them titles for people to opt in.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. There's one more in the inbox which we've got time for from Marcella.
Yeah, I'm trying to work with John Kabat-Zinn to get the MBSR course, let's say, also as a blended learning version being approved. Because there is a lot of approval behind the scenes for making steps, and I try to push now officials to step forward and say, okay, let's create something that is somehow approved and people know, because there's a lot of that's my German language, I don't want to put it wrong, obedience, right? And there's so much formality around like MBSR or MBCT, or at least for MBSR, I know, how sessions are. People are quite hesitant or afraid to make changes and still call it MBSR. Some things they cannot do. So there is a bit of a vacuum where people want to do, but are still hesitant. And I try to, talk to stakeholders to get things moving in that direction, to open up to more blended learning possibilities. Ruth?
Sorry, is there still time for a quick question?
Yeah, there is. We started a little bit late, Ruth, so we're happy to carry on for 2 or 3 minutes, but obviously some people might need to leave. So why don't you go for it?
Thanks, Steph. Yeah, I run at the moment nearly all online, but this kind of going more into corporate worlds and doing a blend is really what I'm starting to look at. But one issue that keeps coming up is about recording sessions. And my concern is that a lot of the work that we do is around mental health and well-being specifically. And people who can't attend, or, you know, are gonna, for whatever reason, they're saying, well, will the session be recorded, even if it's a small part of the session? And I really struggle with recording because of the confidentiality and, you know, actually wanting people to be able to share in a really authentic way. I'm just wondering if you have any tips around that.
So what I did in a session about, was also a well-being resilience session. I did a recording, but I only recorded my input. Discussions and everything was, I did in the beginning, the introduction, today's topic, and if I had an input, this was recorded, but not the questions and the answers. So you can always pause the recording and restart it. It's a bit annoying because it needs some focus and sometimes you forget, and then you need editing, which you can do at the end. But that's one approach doing it. Or having, if you take it to the extreme, saying we only have exploration and discussion in our sessions. That's what's happening. There is no recording, but everything that is theory related, there is a recording anyways on the platform. There's a pre-recording of your inputs. Could also be an approach.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, we do mindful photography, and most of the learning materials are there on the online platform. That's all separate, and then the live stuff is all very, very much discussion based, conversation based. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. Yeah, thanks for closing us off with that. It's really helpful. So Matthias has put a link into the chat for anybody that wants to connect via social, which some of you may want to if you're not already. And obviously this recording will be made available. Something will come out from us with regards to where you can find that. Matthias, look, thanks so much. It was really loads of content there and lots of ideas, and obviously your experience is shared with the audience, which we really appreciate. It'd be really useful from this audience to know if this is a space that you want us to continue in, and you want to know more and get more best practices and share in other people's experiences around blended learning, and particularly the topic that came up around that piece around MBSR, I think is really interesting, and how we navigate mindfulness-based interventions in the workplace. So yeah, do let us know. Give us some feedback. You can write to the MWC email address if this is something you want us to continue down that pathway on. But yeah, thanks very much for being here, everybody. It's been great to have you here. Thanks for the questions. And do stay connected. Look out for our event schedule coming up for the rest of spring and summer, January 2024. And then we look forward to seeing you all back at some stage this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Since my keyboard is striking, I cannot send any links now. I will do a recording because people were asking me now for a demonstration. I do a recording of Mindseed.
Right.
You see it in place. It will be a 3-4 minutes video, and you will get a link as well with a presentation. There will be an email probably from the Bamba team. And thank you for having me here.
That's amazing, Matthias. Thank you for that. That's a brilliant offer. Thank you so much.
Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody.